Good evening. My name's Emilio Morgenstern. I'm a 19-year-old freshman. And this past summer, I had the opportunity to save my dad's life. It was the first night of August, and I was laying in my room. It was around 9:20 p.m., and out of nowhere, I hear this sound from downstairs. This deep, terrifying sound. Of course, I'm watching reels, so I'm like, what the hell? So I run downstairs, and I find my dad laying on the couch, lifeless. He looked like his soul had left his body. My dad was having the deadliest heart attack a person can ever have, the Widowmaker heart attack. It kills around 90% of people that get it. And my dad, outside of hospital, and my dad was having one inside my house, at my couch, right in front of me. And honestly, I was scared. But of course, I got this huge rush of adrenaline, and my mind went into autopilot, and I did the first thing that I thought I could do. Got down and started CPR. I was at it for 12 minutes until the EMT arrived, and I didn't feel the sweat in my forehead or the pain in my arms because all I could think about was to get my dad to breathe again. And I remember watching everything happen, watching my life flash like for the future, and thinking like all the moments that my dad wouldn't be there for me. My wedding, my graduation. And it wasn't his time yet. I wasn't ready for him to go. But before this night could even happen, before I was on that floor begging my dad to stay alive, I had to go through life first. And these things that I went through in life have taught me something, what it actually means to be alive. Of course, in my opinion, right? So, let me bring you back to the day that I was born in 2006 in Mexico City, capital of Mexico. I was born with a Mexican mom, a German dad, a 4-year-old brother. I don't remember a lot from this day, but from what my parents and doctors have told me, I was born dying. Due to genetic mutation in my ureter, there was extra tissue that was blocking the urine flow from the kidney to the bladder. So instead of urine flowing out of my body, it stayed back in. And my kidneys were toxic, and my body was slowly shutting down. To my luck, this really cool doctor called Dr. Atlantida Raya was there, this ICU surgeon, and she performed a 12-hour surgery that if gone wrong, it would have killed me. She had no idea who I was. She didn't know my parents. She didn't know who I'd grow up to be. But after 12 long hours, she gave me my first second chance at life. And without her, I wouldn't be here. And you guys would probably be listening to a random guy, I don't know, named Michael or something, super bored. Thankfully, I'm here. No. But anyways, 3 months after the hospital, 3 months after surgery, I finally went back home. And I started my life. A life that at the time, I didn't really know how to appreciate. I have to say, despite everything little me endured, I had a pretty cool childhood. I had big dreams, big ambitions, and my biggest dream was to become an NBA player. My dad played basketball, so of course I had to. No. And it didn't really end up working out. But that's not the point. The point is that I had dreams, I had ambitions, and I was just a normal kid, wanting to shine like everyone else. I tried really hard until these dreams were brought to a very hard stop when I turned 14. My nephrologist or kidney doctor sat my parents and me down and said, Emilio, you're going into end-stage kidney failure, and you need a kidney transplant. And I remember sitting on that office like, wait, what? Because, of course, I had no idea what was going on. Even though my doctors knew that this day was going to happen, even though my parents had been carrying this weight since the day that I was born, for some reason, it didn't really feel like this day was coming. Someday always felt like never, and now someday was standing right in front of me. And I was scared. I was 14, I was scared. Of course, something that I didn't really know at the time, to my luck, was that my dad, from the moment that I came into this world, when I was in the hospital fighting to survive, he had made the conscious decision that when the time came, he would be the one to save my life. The guy stopped drinking, stopped smoking, and just started being a healthy guy, as if part of his life belonged to me. The German guy stopped drinking beer for 15 years. Of course, that's love, you know. And the cool thing is that he didn't do it because he was afraid of losing me. He did it because he loved me. There's a difference. So we went through all the tests, we did all the blood work, everything, the match. It was almost a perfect match, which is great. And everything was good, we were ready for the surgery. My dad was going to save my life. So we did one last test to assess the functionality of his kidneys, of course, protocol, when we were devastated to find out that my dad couldn't be the donor. He was going into, he had part of kidney failure himself. And I was devastated, because I had been waiting for this my entire life. My dad, of course, as a good German, didn't believe this was true. So he said the doctors had to be wrong. So he went to the doctor and said, no, let's do this again. And we did the testing 5 different times in 2 different countries. But the same results kept coming back. My dad was ruled out, and we had to start looking elsewhere. And I remember that my nephrologist now tells me, in 15 years of knowing us, through all the surgeries, through all the hard times, he had never seen my dad cry until that day in his office, where he couldn't fulfill the thing that he had promised himself 15 years ago. So, after that, for me, the safety net was gone. Had no idea what was going to happen. Had no donor lined up. I thought that I was dying. Of course, I had no idea what was going on. And everything just felt terrible. And of course, I know the one thing on your mind is, what happened to my hoop dreams? Well, those weren't looking that promising either. Of course, it's hard to make the NBA when your kidneys are shutting down. Sure, of course, I use that as an excuse. It wasn't going to happen anyways, but it's not the point. The point is that I was scared, and I didn't really know what was going to happen. We reached out to family and friends, and finally, my uncle stepped up. He said, I'll do it. We flew to Germany to do all the testing. The surgery was scheduled, we were excited, and I was finally going to get my life back again. My life was going to be saved. 2 weeks before the surgery, my dad comes into my room and says, Emilio, your uncle won't be your donor. He read some stuff online, some 1 in a million case, and he couldn't do it. And the fear is real. I mean, you're going through a surgery and everything, but to me, it didn't matter, because my life was my life depended on this. I know if you guys have dogs, it's like when you give a treat to a dog, and you give it, they open their mouth and you take it away. That's how I felt. But instead of a treat, it was my life. And that's when I hit the lowest point in my entire life. Of course, I haven't lived that long, but from what I've lived, that's the hardest moment I've been in my entire life. I stopped eating, I stopped sleeping, I stopped caring about anything, because I didn't know if I was going to make it. And I remember one night, I was lying in my room, watching the ceiling and thinking if I'm going to die anyways, why don't I just die now? And I think I need to say this out loud because it's true. And because, I think people have been in that place before. And more people have been in that place than are willing to admit it. But I kept showing up. I kept going and trying, and then our nephrologist told my parents and I, just go to social media, you'll find a kidney there. And so we did. And I remember I was posting on my Instagram story, all my middle school followers were looking, hey, I need a kidney. And of course it was weird. They saw a victory royale, and then they saw my kidney and they were like, what the hell? But anyway, so we started crowdsourcing. My parents were posting, my friends were posting. It was great. And many, many people reached out. People even offered to sell their kidneys, which was It's crazy. But the point is that people were there for me. And after months and months of waiting, one person finally showed up. Sandy texted my dad, who was my family friend, and my dad's ex-coworker, and she said, I'll do it. In a process that usually takes 7 months, took only 3. And on August 2022, on my brother's birthday, I received a kidney transplant. And I received my second chance at life. Of course, but nobody really tells you what comes after. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks in recovery. And it wasn't honestly the most fun. I had tubes everywhere. Very hard narcotics were coming in through my body. I was useless. And 2 months later, my family moves to LA because of my dad's new job. New country, new language. Of course, I hope my English is good and you can understand me. But in a long time, I finally felt like, wow, I'm alive. Finally chasing something. And I'm not running away from death. And it was awesome just to be there, sit down, look at the sky, the blue sky, the clouds. It was beautiful. And life just felt good. It felt like being alive was this incredible thing that I had been doing my whole life without ever stopping and noticing. It was good not because I feared that my life was going to go away. It was good just because it was good. My life was going back on track. I was chasing my dreams, and I was finally achieving something. Had ED to the school. Everything was great. And then we're back on August 1st. Of course, you guys know what happened before, but let me tell you a little bit what happened after. So I'm on that floor giving CPR to my dad. The EMT arrives, and everything's just going so fast, and yeah, it was hard, man. But I remember just watching him, the paramedics come in, they start giving him CPR, and I'm just standing there watching my dad on the floor. I'm sitting like this with the paramedic, like, crazy, huh? He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, man. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. But the point is that it was like, I just couldn't really get it. My dad was dying in front of me, and I didn't know what was going to happen. So I call my girlfriend's dad, who happens to be an ER doctor, and I'm like, hey, I don't know what's going on. Please come help us. And they're like, okay, sure. They go to the doctor. We go to the hospital. And when we get there, I see Dr. Katz, who's my girlfriend's dad, and he's looking at me next to my dad, and he's like, Emilio, your dad died in the ambulance. For some reason that he couldn't explain and I can't explain, he made it back. There's no medical explanation how, but if you hadn't done CPR, your dad would have been dead. And I was like, whoa, what? Because I was like 18 and I had just saved my dad's life, and I was like, what? Crazy, man. Like, I was just in shock. And I just thought it was crazy because the man that spent his entire life trying to save my life had just saved his, apparently. And 3 days later, they take him off the ventilator. He's like, oh, he couldn't remember stuff. And of course, he's like German, so he's like, oh, why am I here? I like the hospital. It's a really nice hospital. And I remember once he started gaining memory and understood what happened, he said, he gave me a fist bump and said, thank you, Emilio, you did a good job. Of course, that's the most emotion I've ever gotten out of him in my entire life. So that's awesome. That was great, And what was it? 2 weeks later, I fly to Wake Forest without him. So I was making calls to the doctors to see if everything was fine. But it was hard. It was hard because of everything that had just happened. Had almost lost my dad. I don't know what was going to happen. New environment, had to make new friends. And, it was hard. I wasn't sleeping well, I wasn't eating well, I wasn't socializing as well. But I kept going. The plan my entire life was for my dad to save me, and I ended up saving him. If you have told me that 15 years ago, well, of course, when I was 15, I would have laughed in your face and called you an idiot. But thankfully, I'm here. And I guess what I'm trying to go to, the point that I'm trying to make here, I've had a close relationship with death my entire life. When I was born, in my head when I was 15, and in my couch when I was 18. And something that I've realized every time that it gets better, I realize, wow, I'm alive. I have to keep going. Everything's perfect, you never know when it's your last chance at life, You never know when life flips the script on you. And that didn't really ever stuck with me. I just noticed, when I go to the superstore, or in Mexico we call it el super, but when we go to the store and you buy a yogurt, you don't buy it because, it's about to expire, let's buy. No, you buy it because you love it. That shirt you're wearing, you bought it because something made you want to buy it, because you love it. So something that I've been thinking to myself is, why do we approach life in that way? Why do we sometimes just love it when it's ending? Why don't we just love it? Because we have it. Not because we're about to lose it. If that was the case, I'd probably be the happiest guy in the world. I've lost my life I haven't lost it, but I've almost lost my life a couple times. And, I'm pretty happy, but it's life. What stayed with me wasn't the fear of dying. It was that I'm alive. And something I want you guys to remember when you leave this, you guys have been here a long time in this earth, and life is the longest thing that we'll ever do. And while you're in it, life is limitless. You'll have a girlfriend, hopefully, you'll marry, you'll do everything. And you can just wait until something happens for you to enjoy it. Life isn't short. It's the longest thing we'll ever do. And one last thing, don't love your life because it's ending. Love it because you have it. When you walk out and you'll see the trees, it's a nice day out, so thanks for being here. You'll see the trees, just enjoy it and be happy because you're alive. And one last thing, learn CPR because you never know when you're gonna need it, and I think it's a life-saving skill. But anyway, that's it. Thank you. Enjoy your life and be happy. And thank you so much.